All right, let's see. Last time we met, we played around a little bit with Redux. We talked about a trivial example. I was playing around with the slides. I'm laying it out so that on the left-hand side, maybe you have the slides. On the right-hand side, you have a video from last semester. So I'm working on that. So yeah, we talked about a trivial generic example. Let's look at one that is a little more specific. Right? Here's a simple hello world. It's almost as simple. Just added some little bit of complexity, but not much. But it's not as generic as the one we talked about last Thursday. Okay? Although I guess hello world's examples are as generic as you get. So let's take a look at a hello world React application. All right, so let's go back, and here, where are we? In the lectures directory, I'm going to create a React app, and it'll be a hello React app. So let's create that. We'll need to also install React Redux, right? And Redux React the connection, right? So both the libraries that implement the core Redux library plus the connection between React and Redux. Okay. This will take a moment. Okay, there we go. If we go into the hello application and we do an npm start, it's just the generic React application that we already are familiar with. Okay? There's nothing special about this application. So let's add npm install. Let's add Redux and save. Don't forget to save. Right, so this is the core library. Right, this is the same library across Angular or React. They all use this same library. So we'll need also the Redux React library. That this is the glue between the Redux library and the React world. Okay. So let's import. Let's install that. Don't forget the -- save. That's going to add a dependency in your projects.json file, right? So that when you deploy this on Heroku, it'll also be there. Install. Oh, is that? Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, React Redux. Redux. Meanwhile, let's open up our project. Let's. I believe it's under the lectures directory. So webdev, 2018 summer lectures. Hello. There we go. So let's open that up. And let's see. The default file structure and the default JavaScript stuff, we're going to blow that away so we can start from scratch. So let's remove that. And let's build an entry point for our application at index.js. So we'll need to import React from React. Okay, that doesn't change. We still need that. Since this is the entry point, we'll also need React DOM. This is the glue between React and rendering on a browser. Right? It's manipulating the DOM. Right? If this was React Native, then we would not be using React DOM. Right? It would be mapping to some mobile native device. Okay? So let's build an entry point. So this might be a hello world component that just renders maybe h1 hello world. Right, that's all it does, and then we can just render it with using React DOM. We can say React DOM render And then we can pass in the hello world component we just built and tell it where we want to render it. We want to render it at document.get element by ID root, and root is that's where the index page, right, where we have declared the name of the div where everything is going to be injected. Okay, so yeah, so that's just our hello world. If we run this, it just runs as a hello world. Everybody okay? All right. Okay, so let's continue. Typically, this component will be some component embedded in some application. Probably also this would be a component that is configurable, so you can pass it attributes, such as maybe not just say hello world, but hello, and you can pass in an argument, maybe some generic message. Right, so instead of hello world, you can pass it something else, maybe h2. We can render the message right here. Right now, we don't have a message, so it's not rendering anything, but we can pass it as an argument, right here as part of the as an attribute. This is going to parse out of all the parameters, all the properties that it passes that are being passed as an argument. It'll parse an attribute called message, right? And so, for instance, if we pass the attribute, we can just pass it here as an argument right here, right? So we can say, "Hello world, life is good." Right. So it's being passed as an attribute, right? And this has to have the same exact name. So this is looking for a property called message, right? That is being passed as an argument. So these two need to match. Everybody okay? All right. All right. So let's try and create here a Redux around it. Use Redux around this. So for instance, instead of there being a message that I'm passing around here, we want Redux to pass it, right? And depending on certain buttons and certain actions, we want the message to change, perhaps. Yes. For instance, let's have it be able to get this message not from an attribute that is being passed, but as a part of the state of the application. The application maintains what the message should be for this component. Right, so there should be perhaps an initial state, right, something like let initial state, where the message is equal to life is good, goodbye world. No, that's too dark. Hello world, goodbye world. What message do we want here? Semper, what is it? Seize the day. What's in the? Huh? Carpe diem, like that. Is that spelled right? Okay. So let's have that initial state be what we want to render, right? And we want Redux to be able to feed this state onto that component. Okay. Right now, obviously, this state is not in there. Right now, is being hard-coded here as an argument. Okay. But presumably the state of the application is this initial state. So presumably the reducer is the responsible one of manipulating or providing what the current state is. Okay. Depending on the different actions or events that occur as folks interact with the application. So let's create a reducer. So const reducer. The reducer is just a function, right, that takes two arguments, the current state, right, and an action. Right now we don't have any actions, right, so nothing is happening just yet. We want to focus first on the state. How does the reducer would feed or provide the state for the component to render? Yes? All right, let's see how we do it. Okay, it needs to return something. It needs to return the next state. Right now, let's have it return the only state that exists, this initial state. So we can initialize the state. Right now the state is nothing. There is no new state, but let's initialize it and give it initial state. So state, I'm going to initialize it to be the initial state. Okay? That's also part of ES6, that the arguments, the parameters of a function can have a default value. Right? And we've provided it as being this initial state. So the reducer right now is just a function that the only thing that it does is that it returns this JSON object. That's all it does. Right? There are no actions, is not receiving any event handling, nothing. Right? It always returns this JSON object, which in the Redux world is the current state, or it's the next state where we're going to go to from wherever we were. Right? Right now, the initial state and the next state are always going to be the same. Everybody okay? All right, I just want to show you how to feed. How is it that this state at some point feeds into my hello world application component? Okay? All right, excellent. So, what we're going to do is that we're going to create a store for this. So const a store from a create store. So create store, and we'll provide the reducer here. Reducer. Now we don't have create store, so let's load that. That's part of the core Redux functions, right? That instantiates these stores. What is the store? It keeps track of all the states that have been created so far. Right now, it's always going to be the same state. The store is going to contain only one state, right? The same state. Yes. There's a combine reducers function that you can pass it as argument multiple reducers, and so it would be I think it's called combine store, and then you would provide multiple reducers as argument, and then it would generate that one store. Yep. Yeah, we'll take a look at combine reducers a little later. All right, so we have a store. But we don't have create store, so it's probably complaining. What is this create store? Right? So create store is from the core Redux library. So okay, we got a store. We need to feed the store to our application. We have to give it to our application. So the way we're going to do that is that we're going to wrap our application with what we're going to call a provider. Right? So our application, we're going to create a provider with our store equal to store. And here we have a provider. Right? We don't have provider, so provider is part of the glue, part of the Redux React glue. Well, what glues the low-level Redux library to the higher-level React world. Okay, so let's load the provider. The provider is an import provider from React Redux. There it is. Okay. All right. So now the provider is providing the store to our application, right? Now the component doesn't know what to do with it. Right? The component still doesn't know how to grab anything from the store, right? As far as our component still is concerned, it's still receiving its state from some hard-coded attribute. Okay? What we want to be able to do is say, well, the reducer is generating this state, right? So we're generating this state, and what I want to do is map this state variable inside of my state object. I want to map it to your message property. So I want to map state to properties. Yes? I want to map that. And the way it works is that we need to first wrap our components. We need to wrap it what it's called with a container. Right? The container is the one who's going to maintain the state and pass the state to the ultimate component that's going to render this. All right. So let's do that. We're going to create a component. So const hello container. Right. It's what's going to receive the state, and it's going to pass it along to our component. Right, so this is going to be a connect. So connect is what's going to connect these two worlds. It's going to connect these two worlds. It's going to say it's going to connect the hello world, right? And the container is what we're going to be rendering here. Just this right here, just the container. Okay. Connect is part of the glue. Connect is part of the glue. So it's part of this React Redux is what connects the two worlds together. So we'll need to load that as well. So connect. All right. Right now it's not receiving anything. Right. The property is not receiving anything. We need to now say, okay, I am feeding you the store. I'm feeding you the state, but you don't know what to do with it. Right? I need to tell you, well, your message property, I need you to grab it from this particular state variable. Right, so let's do that. We need a mapping function here. And we're going to say, here's a mapping function. The mapping function is going to be a state to property mapper, and which is going to receive as argument the current state, and it's going to return, right, what the property should be from the state. Okay? So it'll be a JSON object that says, hey, the message property that the component is expecting, well, grab that from the current state, right, the message variable inside of that state, right? Okay, grab it from there. And we pass that the connect is what is gonna pass. The connect is the one who's gonna do the magic of saying, hey, I'm gonna do the mapping between these two worlds, the state world and the property world, all right, and it's gonna be fed into the hello world. And I'm gonna pass all the properties already with the objects, right, mapped correctly. So we're gonna grab that, paste it in there, and there it is, carpe diem. Right. So this is the mapping occurred, right, where we are retrieving from the message variable in the state, right, and we're generating the property, right. They currently right now they have the same variable name, but they don't have to, right. They don't have to. This might be message and message. Right. They don't have to be the same. Right. That still works. Just to make sure. So I'm grabbing it from a data model that contains the state information, and I'm flattening it and mapping it to what the component is expecting. Right. Now, what this allows me to do is to untie the dependencies on how I am keeping track of the state and how it's going to be rendered. Okay, and they have two completely concerns, right? There are two different concerns. On the way I'm storing it in the state, I might have arrays. I might have objects within objects. I might have a very complex state. Yes, that the component might not even care about, right? All this very complex state information. It just only cares that I need this piece of information that I need to render. That's all it really cares. It doesn't really care about that I have arrays and objects and whatnot. And that's the purpose of the mapper. The mapper responsibility is to do this conversion, right, of some complex data structure that maintains the state of the application, and then just map it and extract exactly what the component needs. Okay. Make sense? All right. All right. Excellent. So we went one way. We went from the reducer, and we injected the state information that the hello world wanted to render. Everybody okay? Okay. All right. So now let's go the other way. Right. The hello world might need to generate events, right, and say. Generate some other event and set this message to something else, right? So, for instance, we might have a button here that says, send message 1, and maybe another send message 2. And we might have just 2 buttons in there. And depending on which one you press, it'll send one message or another. All right? Okay, so for instance, and the only way that we know how to do that, all right, using the Redux, is that it's not going to be the component's responsibility to maintain any of this state, right, to directly manipulate the message, that it's not its responsibility, right? When the data is ever changed, it's always through the reducer. The reducer is the only one who, well, it doesn't change the state, right? The state is never changed. A new state is generated, right? Brand new state is generated. The old one is there if you want to go visit it, right? All right. So how do we do that? So we need to, if we click one button, we need to notify our reducer that something happened. Okay. And the way that works is through what we mentioned last week. We say that dispatchers, right? It needs to dispatch an action that can be used by the reducer, right? To then manipulate. To generate a new state, right? So we're going to pass it. This connect here. When we did the connect right here, where's the connect? When we did the connect, this connect, again, it's responsible for passing it the message, right, to the hello world. So it's passing this message, but it's also passing me, as part of this connect, it's also passing me a dispatch. Dispatch. Right? A dispatch function is passing me as an argument, right? Which I can use to send messages to the reducer, to tell the reducer something happened. Okay? So here I can say that this button on click, we can say dispatch. Now we don't want to call it immediately. We only want to call it when the event occurs. So I need a function, at least an anonymous function, right, that will call the dispatch when it's clicked. So I don't want to call it immediately. I only want to call it when I actually click it. All right. Let me break this up a little bit. And I want to dispatch. Now the dispatch takes as argument a single JSON object, right, of which one of the attributes of that JSON object needs to be a property called type. Right? It could take other arguments, other attributes, other properties this JSON object, but at least one of them needs to be named type. And this is how the reducer will know what happened. Right? There's a whole bunch of things that could happen, right? But what happened? So I can say here message 1, for instance. Yes? And I can do the same thing with the second button. I can say on click. I can say dispatch, and then say that some other message happened. The message 2 happened. Everybody okay? All right. So now the reducer is receiving not only the state. Right, not only does it have access to the current state, but now it's receiving this action. Now it's relevant, this action, right? Because something is happening. Right, so now we can make this a little bit more nuanced and say that, well, depending on what the action type is, I might generate one state or another state. Okay? I might say that if the action was, in this case, message 1. Then I will generate a brand new state. I'll return MSG. This is message 1. If instead the action type was message 2, then instead I'll return some other state, right, where the message instead is some other message 2, right? And perhaps have a default, that if it wasn't either one of them, then I'll just return the current state. Okay? And remove this. Everybody okay? All right? All right, so let's try it out. Notice that it still has the initial state. And if we click on message 1, notice that it's it's generating the state. See that? It's generating the current state, the next state, message 1 or message 2. Okay? Very good. And really, that's all there is to it. Right? That's all there is to it. There's some cleanup that we might want to do. Some other additional best practices, how to break it up into actual the right directory structure and the file system. So let's now just go on and just improve on this. But as concepts go, this is it. Right? That's all there is to Redux as conceptually. Right? Now let's clean up a little bit. Now, obviously, our applications are not going to fit in one single file. Right? It's not going to be one component, one container, one reducer. Right? It's going to grow substantially. So let's break this up into constituent files, right? So that we can introduce that notion and how to grow this into a bigger application. Let's do that next.